The woman standing beside my husband at the charity gala wasn't his assistant. She wasn't his business partner. She wasn't even a guest. She was being introduced as his wife. The applause echoed through the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers reflected across hundreds of champagne glasses as cameras flashed in every direction. Nobody questioned it. Nobody looked surprised. Except me. I was standing less than 30 feet away, holding the anniversary gift I had spent 6 months planning. My name is Sophia Bennett. I'm 39 years old, and for the last 16 years I've quietly built one of the largest private investment groups on the East Coast. Very few people know my face. That was intentional. My husband, Ethan Bennett, loved the spotlight. I preferred contracts. He gave interviews. I negotiated billion-dollar acquisitions. He stood on magazine covers. I owned the holding company that quietly financed everything. For years, that arrangement worked perfectly. Until the night my own husband introduced another woman as Mrs. Bennett. The ballroom erupted with applause. The host smiled. What a beautiful couple. Ethan wrapped an arm around the blonde woman beside him. I couldn't have achieved any of this without my incredible wife, Claire. My fingers loosened around the small velvet gift box I was holding. Inside was the watch Ethan had admired for almost 2 years, limited edition, personally engraved. Now it suddenly felt ridiculous. Claire smiled at the audience. Thank you for welcoming me into the Bennett family. She sounded sincere, painfully sincere. She didn't know. She honestly believed she was married to an unmarried man. Then Ethan looked toward the audience. Our eyes met. Time stopped. His smile disappeared instantly. The color drained from his face. For one frozen second. Neither of us moved. Then he looked away. He chose her. Again. I quietly turned around and walked toward the exit. No shouting. No tears. No scene. A security guard politely opened the door for me. Have a wonderful evening, ma'am. I will, I replied. Outside. The cold night air felt strangely peaceful. I sat inside my car, closed the door, and made exactly 3 phone calls. The first, to my attorney. The second, to the chairman of our investment board. The third, to the private trust office that legally controlled 81% of Bennett Global Holdings. The attorney answered immediately. Sophia? Is everything all right? I looked back through the ballroom windows. Ethan was laughing. Claire was wearing the necklace I had bought for our 20th anniversary. No, I said calmly. My husband just introduced another woman as Mrs. Bennett. Silence. Then my attorney quietly asked, Do you want me to activate the succession clause? I closed my eyes. A clause. One Ethan had signed 15 years earlier, without ever reading the final page. Yes, I answered. Activate everything. 30 minutes later, every corporate account connected to Bennett Global Holdings was frozen. Every board member received an emergency notice. And my husband's phone started ringing non-stop. He still hadn't realized the empire he thought he owned had never legally belonged to him. My phone stayed perfectly silent. Jake's didn't. Even before I reached home, my attorney called back. It's done. The succession clause has been activated. Every executive account has been frozen pending an emergency ownership review. I thanked him and ended the call. For the first time in 16 years, I wasn't thinking like a wife. I was thinking like the majority owner. Meanwhile, across town, chaos had already begun. Ethan was still standing beside Claire, smiling for photographs, when his chief financial officer hurried across the ballroom. His face was completely pale. Ethan, we have a problem. Ethan forced a smile. Not now. It can't wait. The CFO leaned closer. Our primary operating accounts have been frozen. Ethan frowned. What? The board just received an emergency ownership notice. The acquisition has been suspended. The banks are refusing every transaction. Claire looked confused. What acquisition? Ethan ignored her. He grabbed the CFO's phone. Across the screen flashed one sentence. Emergency board session. Majority shareholder action initiated. His stomach dropped. He immediately called me. No answer. Again. No answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. Within minutes. The ballroom wasn't celebrating anymore. Executives stood in small groups whispering. Investors quietly walked toward the exits. The reporters who had arrived to cover Ethan's engagement suddenly changed their questions. Mr. Bennett, is it true the company is under financial review? Who owns Bennett Global Holdings? Were you aware of today's board action? For the first time in years, Ethan had no prepared speech, no confident smile, no answers. Claire gently touched his arm. Ethan. What's happening? He looked at her, then looked away. I need to fix something. What? My wife. Claire smiled politely. What about your ex-wife? Ethan closed his eyes, then quietly whispered the words that shattered her world. She isn't my ex-wife. We're still legally married. Claire stepped backward. Her engagement ring suddenly felt heavier. You told me the divorce was finished. You lied to me? Before Ethan could answer, his phone rang again. This time, it was the chairman of the board. Ethan, you need to be in the executive conference room, immediately. The majority shareholder is joining the meeting. Ethan rushed upstairs. The room was already full. Every director, every legal advisor, every senior executive. At the end of the table, a large screen turned on. My camera connected. The room fell completely silent. For years, most of them had only heard my name. Tonight, they were finally looking at the woman whose signature had built everything they thought belonged to Ethan. No one spoke. Not even Ethan. The directors simply stared at the screen. For years, they had negotiated with me through lawyers, accountants, and written approvals. Very few had ever seen my face. The chairman finally cleared his throat. Mrs. Bennett, can you confirm that the ownership transfer notice is genuine? Yes. And do Carter Family Trust and Bennett Legacy Holdings still control 81% of this company? They do. The room became painfully quiet. One director slowly turned toward Ethan. You knew this? Ethan lowered his eyes. I knew. But I never believed she'd actually use it. I looked directly into the camera. That's the problem, Ethan. You stopped believing I mattered. No one interrupted. I continued calmly. 16 years ago, when this company had one rented office, 2 folding desks, and 12 employees, my parents invested everything they had. They believed in me. I believed in you. So I made you CEO. I stayed invisible because you said one public face would make investors comfortable. I agreed. I signed every funding agreement. I guaranteed every bank loan. I personally negotiated every acquisition. And every time a magazine called you the founder, I said nothing. The legal counsel quietly placed several thick folders in front of the directors. These are the original shareholder agreements. Mrs. Bennett signed first. Mr. Bennett signed second. The succession clause is valid. Claire suddenly stood up. She looked completely lost. Ethan, what are they talking about? He couldn't answer. She slowly removed the engagement ring from her finger. You said this company was yours. Silence. You said you were divorced. More silence. Tears filled her eyes. You lied about everything. She placed the ring on the conference table. I won't build my future on someone else's marriage. Without another word, Claire walked out. No one tried to stop her. The conference room door quietly closed behind her, for the first time all day. Ethan looked completely alone. His phone buzzed again. The notification appeared on the large screen connected to his laptop. Breaking news: Bennett Global shares suspended pending emergency board review. The chairman folded his hands. Mr. Bennett, effective immediately. Your authority as Chief Executive Officer is suspended until the board completes its investigation. Ethan looked directly at me. His voice was barely above a whisper. Sophia, please, don't destroy everything we built. I looked at him calmly. I'm not destroying it. You started destroying it. The moment you decided I no longer existed. Then I reached for one final document beside me, a sealed envelope. The same envelope Ethan had signed 15 years earlier. Without reading the last page, I placed it in front of the camera. There's one clause none of you have seen yet. The entire board leaned forward. Even Ethan's face turned pale, because whatever was inside that envelope had the power to decide who owned the company forever. The conference room became completely silent. Every director stared at the sealed envelope lying beside me. The chairman spoke first. Mrs. Bennett, please explain. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single document, the original Founders Continuity Agreement, signed 16 years earlier, signed by Ethan, signed by me, signed by every original investor. The company's general counsel carefully examined the final page. Then he looked toward the board. His face changed. I've never seen this version. The chairman frowned. What does it say? The attorney adjusted his glasses. In the event that a controlling shareholder is proven to have intentionally concealed a legal marriage, committed corporate fraud, or knowingly misrepresented material facts to investors or senior executives, that individual immediately forfeits all founder privileges, executive authority, bonus compensation, and voting rights. The room froze. The attorney continued. All voting authority transfers automatically to the remaining controlling shareholder. He slowly looked at me. Mrs. Sophia Bennett. No one spoke, not even Ethan. For 16 years, he had believed the company belonged to the man standing on magazine covers. In reality, it had always belonged to the woman signing the documents. The chairman quietly folded his hands. I'll call for a vote. Within 3 minutes, every director voted. Unanimous. Ethan Bennett was removed as CEO. Effective immediately, I was appointed executive chairwoman until a permanent CEO could be selected. Security entered the conference room. Not dramatically, not aggressively, professionally. One guard stepped beside Ethan. Sir, we've been instructed to escort you from the building. Ethan didn't move. He simply looked at me. I loved you. I met his eyes. I believe you. But somewhere along the way, you loved success more. He lowered his head. For the first time since I'd known him, he had nothing left to negotiate. Claire quietly walked back into the room. She placed the engagement ring on the conference table. Then she turned toward me. I'm sorry. I truly didn't know. I nodded. I know. She left without looking back. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. I kept the holding company. The board approved a new leadership team. Not a single employee lost their job. The acquisition Ethan feared would collapse. Closed successfully 6 weeks later. The company became stronger than it had ever been. As for Ethan, he quietly disappeared from the business world. No interviews, no magazine covers, no speeches. Sometimes people ask me whether revenge felt good. The truth is, this was never revenge. Revenge is fueled by anger. This was accountability. On the first anniversary of that day, I finally used the Paris tickets. Not with another man. Alone. I sat beside the Seine with a cup of coffee and watched the boats drift past. For the first time in years, no one knew my name. No one needed anything from me. And for the first time since I walked into that ballroom, I smiled without pretending. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't taking back what someone stole. It's remembering. It was yours all along. The end.